Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arrowfire and welcome to another episode of Look Out and Shout, where we finally got there with the aerial bots. But before we get on with that, I've got to do a bit of housekeeping first, if you give me a few moments. So first off, you might have seen we are getting very close to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. Really do appreciate the support. 25 more to go as of recording, as of now. So I'm hopeful that you could hit the subscribe button. That would really help out. At 3,000 subscribers, there will be a giveaway competition. I've got some lovely little treats that I'm going to do as a celebration of reaching 3,000 subscribers. So once that milestone's been hit, a competition video will be up with some lovely goodies to go out to one very lucky winner. So thank you very much for your support getting me this far. Just a little bit more to go. Let's get there. By the way, if you do want to get yourself a copy of this from Show Z, as I would always like you to do so, please do remember to use your support your favorite reviewer code of FIRE1, FYRE1. Please enter that at the top of the homepage under the support your favorite reviewer code. Any points that you spend on your account will also be credited to my account, and that leads to further reviews. So today, as promised, we are reviewing. I'm going to be picking this box up slowly. It's a big box. You can hear the polystyrene. Fanstoys FT-30E Jester, their version of G1 Slingshot. But it comes with everything. It comes with the combiner torso, which I've left in the box, hence you can hear it squeaking around. We're going to cover a lot in this video. We're going to cover the figure itself, but we're going to cover plus and minus points of the figure. The frame is inevitably going to come into discussion. The box itself is very nice, very, very big. You've got all 5 of them on there, and Superion in his toy deco, his toon deco on the front. On the back of the box, some nice artwork. Again, squeaky, 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 of the toy deco because it comes with 2 alternate heads. So, it's a very nice box, and we have the typical synopsis on the back of it, talking about Etherion as a combiner. It's much more around Etherion. Think of this box and the presentation of as the Etherion box, and Jester happens to be included in it. Inside the box comes a very thick booklet which shows all the transformations for getting them into their individual combine modes, if you like, as well as collector card for Jester as well as Etherion as well. Also comes with an alternative faceplate for Jester as well as his guns, his 2 double barrel guns, and he comes with the missing blue panels for the waist of Viper, which I've put on Viper, and you'll see in the comparison of this video that was meant to come out with the Viper release a few months ago. Okay, well, we've been waiting long enough to get all 5 of them together. I'm excited for this one. Let's get into it, shall we? And here he is in his robot mode. I think I've done everything right, taking him out of the box. He comes slightly mistransforms. You've got to separate the back of the legs and tilt them backwards somewhat. But that is as clean a looking slingshot as you could hope to find. Straight away, it's lovely. It's a very easy mode to get right, I want to say. He doesn't have an awful lot going on around the torso, and his jet mode is fairly stocky, maybe. So a lot of it was always going to hang off the back. Zeta even did a good job when it came to their version. Probably Slingshot was the best version of a jet mode, certainly, of that set. And I think Fanstoys have done an equally good job with this one. You really do get a sense of beautiful paint adaptation, and you just get that little bit more fizz and panache that was possibly lacking from the Viper release. And my god, this guy comes with all of the accessories in the world. He comes with the missing hip skirts that should have been for Viper, which I've attached and you'll see in a minute. He also comes with 2 hands that will make up for Superion, and of course all of Superion's frame and torso, which again we'll go into for the combined video. But just looking at Slingshot, and you can see the accessories he comes with, he looks brilliant. He's got that beautiful, I don't want to say pearlescent white, it's not, but it is quite a reflective one, very vibrant one. The orange around his head, which you'll see in closer in a minute, is lovely. They've captured that really well. Same with the transparent orange for the cockpit. That's a very nice touch. I always feel, because of it being a Harrier style jet, this is one that will look very good in just in its alt mode. It's got a lot there. It looks like a good shape. And the things like the blue accents on the tail, it just gives that little bit more life and a nice little bit of pop it feels a bit of a step up to Viper. Even if this figure was designed before, it felt like Viper was held back and designed around 2020. This one, maybe not so much. But it does look really, really good. Now, of course, I have stuck on the Autobot sticker onto his shoulder, which you'll see as he comes round. Just because he's the only one that hasn't got a sticker, it does not come with that stuck on. But that's how for now. Let's get in for a closer look. You can just see there's a bit more life going on in and around that face sculpt. The red, again, is still a little bit of a cherry red. Don't know if the light's really going to show it, but it can be a little bit dull, but only a little bit. The white of the figure is carrying a lot of the character, as is the orange head, and he's got a kind of placid face on the go that comes fresh out of the box. But otherwise, it is lovely, typical build, and all reused parts. It's the same arm build as the previous limb bots, similar head, torso, and all the rest of it. It doesn't carry too many surprises in that state. I will say the guns are possibly the best looking guns so far. I don't know what it is. They just got a twin barrel effect going on, so he's holding 4 barrels, and they just look pretty cool. They look pretty fierce, and I think that's the only thing I'd say, maybe other than air raids. The guns that come with all of the other aerial bots, maybe minus Silverbolt as well, they just look a bit ho-hum, and these look a little bit more double barrel shotgun going into a western bar ready for a shootout. Just gives that kind of cowboy vibe. But we'll go into articulation as we're here. So the head can look up a good way, down not much, left and right, shoulder out on a friction, sideways on a friction, a little bit stiff. Bicep rotation, that one's a little bit loose. Stiffer elbow bend, only 90-degree elbow bend. Stiff wrist rotation, at least on my copy. Individual finger movement. The fingers are a little bit thin, and if they're a little bit stiff, I'd be a little bit careful. Yeah, that elbow does want to be stiff. This bicep, or this elbow, is very stiff for me. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's very tight. You certainly can't do it single-handedly. A bit of a waist rotation, not much, and I think that's more going to be with the gubbins on the back of it, but it's also going to lend into the arm rotation when he's in combined mode. Lower half we have just about a 90 going out. Good 90-degree bend at the knee, and a very nice, he says, ankle tilt, but again quite stiff. Not necessarily a bad thing, because he will hold some nice poses. If I straighten that up, you also get a toe tilt, part of the transformation, quite stiff as well, but will do well for holding poses. Outward at the side, there's a few things to move out of the way, but yeah, he will, that's stiff, but he nearly gets 90 out on the side. So yeah, a few, I don't want to say tolerance issues, they're not, but he is just a little bit stiff. He's certainly not going to fall over on you. He's very tightly balanced, very well poised. His only other accessory he comes with is another face, and it's a happy face, which is fine. It certainly has been tangoed. To get that on, you've got to lift the face up, pull out from under his chin, and then push the 2 studs in. And now he's happy-go-lucky. Fine. He was always quite grumpy, I felt. So maybe the placid face is better. I would have preferred him to have a shouty face. I think all the other ones, even Superior, come with a shouty face, and this guy doesn't. So it would have been good to have that, unless it does come with one and I can't find it and misplaced it. But that's the only 2 that I can see. It's not a bad face. I just think the placid one suits him more. Okay, I won't do all the aerial bots individually, but onto some comparisons. Here he is alongside Takara Masterpiece Grapple. Different company, different range. You can see how much he dwarfs him, which I have got him slightly crumpled down as well. They look okay together. They're both going for that toon accuracy. They're much more Season 2 bots. But yeah, completely different companies and time of release as well. This mould is arguably a little bit old now, as good as it still is. So maybe it's showing its age a little bit more. But that's how these 2 look like side by side. Here he is alongside the great leader, Takara MP44 Optimus Prime. I've said this before, that possibly the aerial bots are a little bit too big, but then they were always big. But I don't think Slingshot should be dwarfing Prime or standing on his level. But it's not to say it's a bad look by any means. It's straight off the cartoon. Again, two different companies. If Fanstoys get round to their Optimus Prime, I'm sure they will look quite different in their own respective ways. I would go for a Seeker here, but I thought I'd try something else with a bit of wingspan. Here he is alongside Fanstoys Inquisitor, their version of Scourge. Now, same company and not really the same era, but you can see it's a similar MO. You can see the paint on a pair of them just really standing out. It just shows the really high-end stuff that you get with Fanstoys. They certainly make the presentation look so good. Okay, these two barely shared any parts of it. They did have a little bit in Fight or Flee. Different eras of Transformers, arguably. But it's good to see what a Decepticon aerial force will look like versus an Autobot one. And we have a typical Masterpiece Carbot with Make Toys Downbeat, their version of Jazz. No real contest really, different scale ranges altogether, different companies, but that gives you an idea of what Fanstoys are aiming for, that 9 to 10 inch range, which Masterpiece Carbot certainly isn't. And after 5 years, that's how they look all together in their robot mode. It's a brilliant set. It's murder getting them all in the same light box, particularly with the wingspan of Air Raid. It's a very, very Hypertoon accurate set. But not to a fault, not really. What Fanstoys have done here is brilliant. There are 5 beautifully die-cast and articulate models. Maybe not the most articulate figures you'll find, but they do everything right that is needed to be. It's a very, very top job that I don't think anyone can better. Zeta certainly didn't when it came to the individual modes. I don't think that comes as a surprise. The figures are brilliant. Maverick is an exceptional figure. They all are in their own ways, and putting them all together, they all have their plus and minus points. The best figure for me probably is Maverick. I am a big fan of Air Raid, and Skydive is a bit of a forgotten gem. It's got a lot to like about him. Jester is surprisingly good. Viper's the weakest. I don't think that will come as too much of a surprise. He's a bit bland by comparison. He certainly doesn't feel so good. Those blue additional hip skirts that we didn't get, that came with Jester to replace, and were fairly easy to replace, I think that makes that figure look a bit better. I think there's a bit more life here. Arguably, Jester does not have as much life going on the chest. There is some kind of detailing, as you see when it comes to the review of him, but he could have a tendency to look bland, but there's a lot of other good factors about him. I fell in love with Maverick as soon as it came out. I think the fact that they made a torso bot of that size and all the same height as the rest of them, more or less, to look that stocky, that good, and to turn into a Concorde jet was brilliant. Now, okay, could they have changed the design and then not needed the faux torso? Maybe. But Fanstoys wanted to make them all the same height, very logical, very loyal to the tune as well, have all 5 aerial bots more or less the same height. And they've done that. As individual robots, they've done that. I think you're going to get a lot of people saying they want to keep them in the individual modes. And that's fine. I may end up doing the same. Quite what I'm going to do with the frame remains to be seen. But getting all 5 of them together, man, it's a good set. It's a shame in a white light box it doesn't photograph so well, but in hand, trust me, the paint is perfect, just like Fanstoys do. The weight is nice. The detailing, the accessories of additional shouty faces, which I tend to go for this set, is really, really good. They've done a very, very good job, and just having all 5 of them together in a display cabinet on a shelf will make anyone's collection. Okay, let's slingshot this guy into action, shall we? And here he is in his jet mode. That is a very G1 toon accurate slingshot in a Harrier jet form. It's done the job well. Possibly of all the alt modes, this is the one that it needed to kind of capture well. The Harrier jet's very distinctive. He says like he knows his aerial bots and knows his aircraft. The others have a... how can I put this? They can look very one jet to another very similar. They, on the face of it, they don't have too many distinct characteristics than, say, Slingshot does in this jet form. I always felt his jet form, even in the cartoon, would just look that little bit different to the others, obviously including Silverbolt. But to get it here, it's lovely. The paint is brilliant. The orange cockpit is very, very nice. And I've got him with the landing gears down, and I've got him with the guns on the underside as well. The transformation, I will say I did do it hard panther, but only to a point. Then I went on to one of MGo's videos to try and work out. It's, actually no, it was Bobby Skullface, I think. It was one of them, I can't remember which. It's got a tendency to be over-engineered, maybe. I felt like going through the upper half section and putting the arms away and getting the nose cone over the top of the head was all very similar to the other bots. So I felt confident in tackling it. I felt it was going to be the same as the other ones have been, and I've transformed the other ones a few times now. But when it came to the legs and putting these wings that have a kind of central panel, and I'll show you in a second, you kind of have to hinge it over and then get the tail through the middle. Couple of bits were a little bit awkward, and you felt if it followed a similar pattern to Skydive or Air Raid, I felt it would have been just that little bit simpler. And okay, it's going to house an elbow joint within it. That's one thing that I'm not losing sight of. It's got a bit more bendable engineering to it for being two separate limbs, an upper and lower arm, that you could argue that Skydive and Air Raid won't be. They'll just be a shin of a leg. But when I was transforming it, I felt to myself that this was just perhaps a little bit overdone. Maybe. It wasn't a terrible transformation, and certainly for the first steps you knew what way you were going. Very happy with the alt mode. Lovely weight. Quite heavy when it's all compact. I'm surprised the turntable was actually spinning. It looks really, really good. Let's get in for a closer look. Now, I say this a lot for Fanstoys paints, but they really have done a good job here. That white, it may come across on camera, it's got a lovely sheen to it. It's a very bright white, and the light is reflecting off it beautifully. The transparent orange cockpit is just right. Maybe the nose clone is a little stumpy. Maybe it just seems to stop a little abruptly at the end, if I'm being picky. The red is nice, if again it can look a little bit dull being a bit more of a metallic red, but it breaks up the white nicely. And the blue accents, particularly on the tail, it looks brighter in hand than I think it does on camera. It's a very nice blue in and of itself. You can see the underside, all pretty explanatory. And it's got quite a lot of wheels going on. I don't know if it needs the middle wheels, but then again, I'm no expert. I will say, much like on the Zeta version, I'll do the comparisons in a minute, you can move the side thrusters for a hovering jet. Much like with the rest of this figure, bits are quite stiff, but you can get them down for hovering in air, which is nice. And I'll never forget the first time I saw a Harrier in real life when I was a kid. Saw it come along and just stop and hover in air. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old. That was incredible, seeing that for the first time. Looks really good. Yeah, quite heavy. Yeah, very, very heavy. It's going to make me think about the stand that comes along for it. It's going to be quite a supportive stand to take something of this weight. It's noticeably more heavier in this mode, I guess, because it's more condensed. Things like the arms popping inside of it and the legs. It's very much a compact structure, noticeable in hand. It can't store the alternative face, and he's got the guns on the underside, so there's not much else to go into in terms of accessories, and certainly not maneuverability. The landing gears, the wheels do fold up, of course. You can have him in much more of a complete flying pose. So we'll just get straight on with comparisons. Here he is alongside Fanstoys Iceman, their version of Air Raid. Really do see the difference of design of jet here. I really like this jet. I think this is really cool. But it's two different styles completely. But you do see similarities, and they were made, if we're led to believe, some time apart. But you do see the update in engineering. But again, two different styles of jet, two different parts of Superion's body. So they're only going to have so many shared engineering to a point. But that's how they look side by side. Here he is alongside Goose Skydive from Fanstoys. I do really like this alt mode. But I do think, comparing the two here, I do really like the orange transparent cockpit, and I do wish this wasn't a solid black one, a smoky black that you can't see through. I think if that had maybe a orange or even blue tinge similar to that, that would look a bit nicer, because that can come across a little bit of a dark colour scheme. When you put it alongside Slingshot, alongside Jester, it does pop that a bit more, and I would have liked that for this model. It shouldn't have made too much difference to do so. This is going to be the back of Superion's leg. But this is how they look side by side. Alongside Viper, their version of Fireflight. Yeah, this isn't my favourite mould of the set. This isn't my favourite jet mode either. But you do see a more vibrant side, if you like, when you consider Skydive and Air Raid before. They are somewhat dull colours, and these two making the upper half of Superior, and certainly the upper arms, having much more of a brighter colour scheme between them. The red being used is kind of clear on both, similar colour tone to it. But yeah, this is how these two look side by side. Couldn't be more different in jet modes, really. I'm not really sure what Viper is, but he's certainly not a Harrier jump jet. I hate getting this guy into shots, so here he is alongside Fanstoys Maverick, their version of Silverbolt. Love this alt mode, even if it does have problems tabbing in some places. There's a lot going on. Possibly these two look the best side by side. That kind of solid white body on both of them seems to really reflect, but you can even see compared now. Okay, this was the first offering 5 years ago, I'll say that, 5 years ago, but look how Slingshot, Jester, outshines the white. And okay, could just be my copy, could just be the way I've stored it, but you can see on camera there's a bit more light here in the white use. It's not a cut and paste, and yeah, that's just something interesting that I've noticed. But they look so good together. A Concorde alongside a Harrier, two very iconic jets of the 80s and now. So yeah, it's really cool getting these together. I will do a group shot of all 5 of them, but I will do it in the Superion video when you'll see the flight stand in its fullest form. And here's a comparison people are going to want to see. Can you tell which is which? Well, you probably should if you look to the other ones. Yep, on the left is Zeta Toys Slingshot versus Fanstoys Slingshot on the right. Now, I've got a few points to say about this. First of all, first and foremost, this is the metallic edition, not the first one that was released. So if it looks a little bit duller by comparison, that can be why. Now, as I reviewed back on my Superion set way long ago when I reviewed this set as a whole, I felt that this figure was the best individual bot of the set. Now, I haven't done a comparison of the robot mode alongside Jester. I'll tell you why. It was pretty clear that Zeta sacrificed the individual bot modes and possibly the robot modes at the very most. They were the weakest, they didn't look fabulous at all, and people were okay with that. Zeta wanted to make a good Superion, they sacrificed the robot modes to do so. So I didn't feel like it was worth comparing the two. I can put up a side-by-side picture for people to have a look at and make their own decisions, but I kind of felt there wasn't too much to compare. Jester was always going to win that battle. The alt modes, on the other hand, is a bit closer, quite a bit closer. I said at the time this was the best alt mode of the Zeta set, of all of the individual jets of the Zeta set. And putting them side by side, who wins it? Okay, big problem at the front. You might remember, I said this on my video for those who watched it, I've got a piece of chest plate or shoulder pad that's supposed to fold all the way around, and it's been misassembled and it won't go all the way back without breaking. It's fine for robot mode, sticks out in jet mode, and that luckily doesn't affect the combined mode, but it does stick out. Yeah, annoying. Just try and ignore that it's there. Okay, undoubtedly the Fanstoys version is painted nicer. The orange cockpit is nicer. But the detailing, when you put it alongside Zeta, you really notice it when it's not there. Fanstoys have gone for that tune-accurate, smooth base off the TV screen. Fine, but look at the front. Look at the jets. These are solid, giving like, well, there's no depth there at all, a couple of groove markings. But here you actually have indents and simulating sunken jets. If I get in Slingshot, you see the panel lines, what could actually look and pass for real panel lines on a real Harrier jet. instantly it feels less, but you've got black ends on the hovering parts, and it's considerably lighter. The wheels don't look fabulous, I'm happy to grant that, but it is the best jet of the Zeta set. It's a very, very good jet. It's incredibly light, almost too light, feels flimsy. But when you look at the body, like it's all, I don't want to say it's too smooth, but by comparison it is. You can't really compare. This is where Fanstoys have gone hyper-toon. They don't want all these detailing. They don't really want it to look like a real world Harrier. This does look like a real world Harrier. That looks like Slingshot of an 80s cartoon, and it is. So objectives complete for both sides. That's what they were going in for. But yeah, this is still a very good one, a very good model of Slingshot. It is still the best one of the Zeta set. It has its drawbacks. It is a much older figure. But yeah, it doesn't absolutely blow it away when it comes to alt mode. Certainly it will for robot mode. The robot modes for Zeta are not fabulous on any of them. This is why I did not do a proper comparison. I felt it wouldn't give you much value. And just so you see from comparison, here he is alongside Smokescreen from Takara for a typical Masterpiece Carbot, just so you can see the size and scale that we're dealing with. No contest really, apples and oranges, but that's how they look side by side. He's obviously going to dwarf him. Could you even imagine if they were the same size? So before I go into the final verdict, I wanted to take a bit of time to say something. My last 3 new figure reviews, so MMC Ignis, Takara Beast Wars Rhinox, and now Jester, were all bought through showzstore.com, and they were all able to be purchased using points, and points that were completely generated by people using my code. Now, okay, it's a bit of a running joke that I bash about my code a lot, but particularly there has been a lot of you using it, and it's generated a lot of traffic, and it's generated a lot of points being credited to my account. To the point of those 3 figures I mentioned, it's about £200 a figure. It's a lot in a time that we don't have money to throw around, not all of us, depending on individual situations. And I think if I didn't have those points sitting there that were generated through you wonderful, wonderful people, maybe 1 of those reviews happens, maybe 2. So the fact that I was able to get those figures very fresh, purely using points to buy them, I was able to put those reviews out. So I haven't had such a surge, if you like, to spend that much money concentrated over a period of what, 3 months? That's fairly big expenditures coming out at any time. And the fact I was able to use points to do so, I cannot thank you all enough for doing so. Over 80,000 points used on my code. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you, because if it wasn't for you, possibly only 1 of those reviews happens. Maybe it would have been Rhinox of the 3, or probably Jester. I wouldn't have foregone it. But just wanted to say thank you so, so much for that. It really means a lot for how much of an impact it has had to the channel. And I just wanted you to know how much that means to me and how much that supports the channel as a whole. Thank you so much. So what is my view on the poor man's Alpha Bravo? Well, it's lovely as a G1, just holding it now, G1 looking Slingshot. Straight off the TV screen. The white is lovely, very attractive. It does Slingshot proud. I think it is the best Masterpiece Slingshot on the market. And like I said, I didn't do a comparison in robot mode of the Slingshot from Zeta compared to this offering for Jester. I just felt there was no contest. This was obviously going to be better. We're not exactly flush for Slingshot figures full stop, let alone in the Masterpiece range. One thing I did forget to mention in robot mode, but also in jet mode, his front sections, his chest pieces do open up. I'm not entirely sure why. They're not very deep. I thought they may store the alternative faceplate as a bit of weapon storage. They open up, and yeah, there's a couple of bits of detailing in there, but it's not like missile chests like a Starscream. But that's how he looks in his jet mode, and all of his gubbins to do so. Okay, so what do I like about it? First off, the paint, typical Fanstoys paint. The weight of it feels nice and hefty. He's much more hefty than Viper. Whereas Viper felt like a older release and was held back, this doesn't necessarily But I wouldn't say, I don't know, this could be a year or two maybe held back whilst they were working on the frame, whereas Viper did feel like a 2020 figure. There's been more advancements made. There's more to this than say this. There is quite a bit of difference. Putting all 5 of them together in robot mode is a sweet looking set. They look brilliant together. As people have said, if they want to just store them in robot mode, I totally get it. If you want to store them all in jet mode, I get that as well. Fanstoys have done a very good job in just making 5 very good individual robots. So I like its presentation. I like what it comes with in terms of accessories. I would have liked a shouty face rather than a smiling face. I'm not too fussed about having his faux gold chest piece that looks like a grille of the front of a car. Didn't really need it. It just looks as a masterpiece version of Slingshot should look. So what don't I like about it? I've got a few things to go into here. But what I will say is I'm not super wild on the tolerances on my copy, at least. It's very tight in some places. His left elbow for articulation bend is very, very stiff. Some parts just feel worryingly tight. And I think a lot of people have problems with a leg or the hip joint on Air Raid or an Iceman to the point that that would break off. And I was a bit more concerned about it with this. Not that things felt breaking, but well, you know when things are tight and over tight to a fault. The jets here at the side, okay, I've moved them a bit more now, but they still feel, yeah, that's a little bit, even with a plastic connection, it just feels a bit tighter than it should be. And I worry for breakages. And could you imagine 5 years of waiting, you finally get the last figure and it breaks? There's just one thing I'll say about the set. I haven't had any breakages. I had the tiniest QC issue of Iceman for his little finger, not that it made a difference to transformation. The other thing I'm not too wild about is how we've got him. Now I have to talk about this because whilst it's going to be a Superion issue, you can't get Jester any other way. You've got to go with this massive box, which is down here. You're stuck with it. If you wanted just 5 aerial bots and say, I've got the Zeta Combiner or whatever, I don't need Superion, I just want 5 bots for their individual robot mode and that's how I want to store them, you have no choice but to go down this route. Now, okay, a lot of people will get this box with a view of combining, at least trying to combine, or using the flight stand. I'll cover more of that in a Superion video that will be up in a few days. But the problem I've got is you can't get Slingshot any other way. At least with X-Transbots, you had to buy a separate trailer to combine, but if you didn't want to, you could stop. You have no choice, and you had to pay the inflated price for it. Let's talk about the price, because I've seen a lot of prices being bandied around. I've got to be a little careful because I gave Kang Toys a little bit of credit for theirs, but let me explain that. Kang Toys made their Predator King and you had to get the wolf feet that came with Razor Claw and Primal, if I remember rightly. So you didn't pay for the wolf feet, but you paid slightly more for those 2 figures, maybe only by about 10 or 15 pounds. But you did pay a little bit more. So I can't give Kang Toys an absolute pass and then bury Fanstoys. But okay, let's talk about how much this costs. I was very lucky getting it off ShowZ. It was just over 200. That's pounds, by the way. I have seen people say 400 US dollars. Other sites had it up for considerably more, and other sites got it earlier. And then there was a lot of talk due to the size of it being shipped by a sea freight or very long time to get shipped at all. So the fact it came out, yeah, great. But as I say, I kind of have to tar the price of this for the price of the frame as well. As I say, you had to buy one with the other. So when you look at it, you're spending well over £200 on a Limbot that none of the individual figures cost that much. I think maybe now Maverick will cost 180, perhaps, but this figure would have cost, well, it certainly cost me 216, I think it was. That feels a bit off, and you end up condemning this figure just because it's packaged in the same way. For shipping purposes, they probably couldn't have done it any other way. And they did kind of back themselves into a corner. They certainly have done with the Stunticons. That's for another day. But it's a mark against this figure because you can't get it any other way. If you just wanted a Slingshot, well, in theory, it should be worth the same as Viper. It comes with the same amount of accessories. It's more or less the same weight as Goose and Iceman, so you can pay around the 150 to 180 price mark. But the fact you have to buy it with this behemoth of a box to get the frame to go with it is a blessing and a curse depending on what your collecting habits are. If you're in for the set, you probably don't mind, you swallow the cost. But you can't get it any other way, so even if you're not in for Superion, you have no choice. It's a deduction for the figure because the choice is taken away from you. And that's probably as much as I can say negative about it. Fairly big negative points, but as an individual figure, I really like it. I think its paint scheme is lovely. I like the weight of it. I wish Viper was the same weight. I like the accessories it comes with, although I would have liked a shouty face. And the transformation, yeah, I want to touch on that very quickly. As I said in the video, it just felt a little bit over-engineered, maybe. Just getting certain parts at the back. I felt that Goose and Iceman were a bit simpler by comparison. And okay, I don't lose sight of the fact this houses an elbow joint and this doesn't, so there's more to do here, but it just felt familiar in the beginning and then a little bit harder towards the end, and I was like, okay, that's a bit annoying. But that's all it was annoying. I do like how it looks. I love getting all 5 of them together. And has it been worth the wait? Well, we'll find out, but certainly from this point, getting all 5 of them in jet mode and getting all 5 of them in robot mode, yeah, they look fantastic. As I say, if you wanted to keep them in individual robot modes, who would blame you? They look brilliant. So we're going to be doing a combined video in the coming days. Yeah, it's going to take a while getting the stand already. There's a lot involved. Thankfully, and I'll say this in the Superion video as well, Fanstoys did put out some transformation videos, which, don't you worry, I will be using. Based on this, I give this figure 3.5 Rodimus Star Badges. It's not to say I dislike it, it's not to say I think it's average, it's just, I think, the fact you've got to get it with a very, very big box, and the fact it has to come to you by sea freight, yeah, it's a bit annoying for the outcome that probably couldn't have been anything else. Given how Fanstoys back themselves into a corner and will do so again with Bandit, with Dead End for their Stunticons, it wasn't going to be anything else. So you can't lose sight of that, however good it looks. And I'll probably say that in a combiner video as well. Even if it looks really, really nice at the end, we've certainly gone about it the wrong way to get to that point. 5 years, lest we forget. And there we go, that is my review of Fanstoys FT-30E Jester, their version of a G1 Slingshot. I'll stick some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button because I will see you on the next one.